Well, I had Gabe Flores in the Arts, which was a 5-year project, and that began from August 2009 through August 2014. I've been outside of that project since then, so I've been in the arts for about 6.5 years now. The Gabe Flores in the Arts project was really me coming to terms with 5 shitty years I had. So
Before that.
before me being in the arts. I had just had 5 really, really shitty years. I had like a pretty horrible breakdown. I could see, hear things that other people couldn't. It was like 110 distinct voices. I lost my ability to read, or I guess I could read, but it'd be in around like Frere Jacques. And so, and then I lost my ability to really type because I'd go to a computer and it'd be like as if my fingers were being zapped. So I just got like lost a lot of my ability. And it was like my final year of college, and it was like too much. So I ended up like having 5 years where you're kind of coming to terms with what you're supposed to be doing if you can't do the things that you used to do, and you also don't have the mental capacity to do so. So anyway, that's how I got into the arts. With having the voices and being able to feel like these energy fields around me that felt like people touching me, I began to think that this was virtual reality and that my body was somewhere in the future, and that I was playing a wouldn't it be funny on myself. And so I started thinking like, oh, if I'm playing a wouldn't it be funny on myself, what would I want out of that? And that's how I kind of got into the arts. It's like, well, I probably wanted to try a different avenue, a different way of seeing, a different way of thinking. And then I was thinking like, well, why not give myself a really interesting gift? Like to be able to tell just an amazing sort of story of meeting cool people, of like kind of trying new things, being uncomfortable, why not tell that story if I know that it's just like comes down to that anyway. So like if you're in virtual reality, then no one shares your story, it's just you, so you're just trying to figure out a story to tell. So it's like it really allows you, like for me, that allowed a lot of freedom being in a virtual, thinking that this is a virtual state, because then it's like, oh, it just comes down to the story. And I was just thinking like, well, if we're going to participate in the arts, then let's just do it. And let's make it so that way it's like a contract. So that way I have to kind of perform. I have to stick with it. I have to like dedicate myself to a better story. And so I ended up constructing a plan in that week with a bunch of limitations and rules for me to enact for that 5-year period.
So you came up with Gabe Flores in the Arts separate from Place.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Everything within Gabe Flores in the Arts is between any project that I've done or designed between August 2009 to August 2014, okay, which surplus is in there.
Yeah. And Place was a little after you started?
Place was about about 10 months after I started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Were you looking for a gallery, or did you know what Gabe Flores was going to be?
No, I had no idea. I had some goals. So, like, I had a bunch of rules, actually. But it wasn't about having a gallery or that. It was just saying yes to everything for the first year. Okay. And that's really what one of the things was. And then I knew that I was already struggling, like, getting reading done. Like, it took me a lot to read a newspaper. There was just like too much like PTSD about like going back and reading something and not knowing if it's being rehearsed or if I'm going to hear something when I do it. Mm-hmm. So if I read, for the longest time I would just have to blare music and then try to read, and I just was frustrated with it. So I made a rule that like for the first 4 years you don't have to read. There's no reading of sociology, history. There are none of my crutches, so no philosophy. And then I also don't have to read any art history. I don't have to read anything about studio practice for that first 4 years, because then I get to see like how I can lose language, like because I still had like some of my academic languages that I had previous, but I wanted to kind of slip away. Where it's like once you start having that slippage, it's really frustrating. And so I figured out like why not why not just make it part of the project? We don't have to worry about that part. So it's a stress right now. Like, just make it so you are just doing a good job by not reading.
Yeah.
Since I'm not going to be reading, I just had to come up with my own definitions. I didn't want to look definitions up, so I just created a couple simple definitions of what art was, or what art is to me. So the primary is art is just when aesthetic and concept are fairly well balanced.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, I mean, just trying to get it to its base. And then the other is this is the first time that my narrative or your narrative has ever happened. Ever. It's the first time. So you walking out from here, that's the first time that action's ever happened. The first time you get into your car, us doing this is the first time. Any video you make, any painting you make, anything you do is the first time, because your narrative has never encountered that before. So it gives you the freedom to make anything you want, because even if it's like abstract expressionism, something that like people have like an understanding of, like just even understanding that term is a term means that it's probably in the ether. It already exists out in the world. I can take whatever I need to, because it's the first time that it's happened. And that's the same for everybody. So having those two basic, and then the third is art is us being at our highest self, our highest ethics.
Okay.
So with those definitions, I thought like, okay, that's enough for me to be able to lean on in nearly any situation of the arts. And that's all that's really those are the three tools that I brought with me. I recently do not have a space. I've had a space for a while. And like 5.5 years having a space. And that is like I have no idea. I think that's partly also what I think about a lot. It's like, oh, what does it mean to change your position? Like willfully.
Yeah, right.
To change it. Like to decide that, what if I don't want you to notice me for that anymore? And like knowingly just doing this to part of my experience, is it like that's just kind of nice. It's like, oh, like I get a restart, I get a redo.
Yeah.
And that's all, like, I mean, the experience of having place and surplus and even store, those are all, like, it's all forever, really. Art is problem solving with our highest ethics. We have to be, the projects that you design when you're in the arts don't exist previous. So if you are putting something out to the world, it kind of has to be, like, your best self. Or at least your best intention. You may not be able to follow through with your best self, but at least your best intended self. So that's like the one thing with art. So it inherently, it kind of aims to make a difference. Art really allows us to experience personal freedom, because we get to see how we exist out into the world. And art is a big trust fall. And usually, for the most part, when you do, like just for my own personal experience, when I put something really personal out there, nobody's judging it. Nobody's judging like, sucks to be him. That's not what's happening. It's a different thing. There's a connection that happens. And so the problem solvingness of art is communicative. It has to be responsive. Like the audience responds and lets you see how else that language applies. Well, I don't know. Like with art, my belief really is I get another show. No matter what I do, I get another show. I'm going to do whatever I need to do with this show, and it might suck sometimes, but I get that idea out of me, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And like it's more of like this, like I don't know, just expunging. That you just sometimes want to get rid of some stuff, and so you put it in the art yard sale. Thing of the show, Rhoda London's work. I loved that.
Which one was that?
Rhoda London, we fabbed for her like 3 different shows. She had died of pancreatic cancer.
I think you talk about it. Yeah.
I really liked the coffin piece that we had made with her. We made this glass top and bottom coffin, and it was out of she had made this art wheel that we fabbed for her, and it was out of the melamine shelving from Pottery Barn, and we just like made this thing out of like we took it down to McMinnville and Jerry helped us make this thing, and like it was really kind of sick, and then we dismantled these long pieces that had like philosophers' names kind of scrolled in her writing, and then made it into a coffin.
Okay.
And that was really I think I just liked the relationship. I like being able to work with her and being able to see like someone trust somebody else because when ability shifts, it's like there's a different trust that happens both for like how you exist in the world. You might need to ask for additional help in just your daily life, or you have more appointments, which is asking for help, like with doctors, and then to see how that translates to somebody's work and practice. One, like in particular, was over at Surplus Space, and it was this piece from Roxy Dazzles, which was a collaborative piece from John Gann, Leaf Lee, and Manny Layers. And they created a persona, a queer persona, and then they all made work kind of as an embodiment of that. And we had an altar that was outside that was dedicated to folks who had been victims of violence because of their gender identity and sexuality. And they were outside kind of rehearsing and kind of going over movements, and a neighbor had passed by. And then the neighbor kind of I just know all the neighbors because I'm like, the project Surplus Space was such a crazy transformation of the space that you just get to know everybody really quickly. So the neighbor kind of went back and then walked to the back to see what they were up to, and then they were explaining what the meaning was, and then the daughter of the neighbor looked up to the mom and said, like, this is sitting really close to home. And then they kind of went on their way, and they didn't really say much else to Manny and the others that were performing. A few weeks later, like well after the performance and the show had ended, I had seen the neighbor outside, and she had told me that it hit really close to home because she, her son, who's transgendered, is going through a process with a private college in this area and not being allowed to live on campus because of their identity. And like it was in the New York Times and USA Today and they're going, and like it's been like major. And she was just saying, and I get so like, I think like I do think that art makes a difference. Like I get so like weepy like just thinking about it. It's like what she told me was that it was so nice to not feel so alone. Like that was her language. It's like it was nice just not to feel alone.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that gave, I don't know, it just gives you an opportunity to see how it actually functions in the real world. It's not about the CV. It's not about like what your next show is going to be. It's about like what that connection can do. And it gave me the ability to talk to her about like me growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and being kicked out. And there's like real sharing that doesn't happen often with neighbors. So there's like this connection that can happen. So I don't know, I've just seen other people being affected, like having that neighbor being able to see their personal experience through a work of art and seeing that it's like, oh, there's community out there. Yeah, you ask a question, but you know that's not the best question. You're hoping for a better question. Like with any project I know that I've ever done or any project that I've seen done, it's like that person is investigating the importance of that question. Mm-hmm. And when they're completed with this project and they have some time to kind of mull it over a little bit, they'll probably have an even more refined question, which helps in like us being able to pinpoint like changes in the belief that need to happen. Okay, because when you're in the arts, you're always you're performing also. Like you're in the world, but you're going to these like office parties weekly. Mm-hmm. Office parties. At galleries or at performances or wherever it is that you take in work.
Are there a lot of art couples?
There are. Yeah, there are quite a few art couples. I could never do that. Oh my god. No way. No way. I do not want that.
Really?
No, because I mean it wouldn't last.
Yeah.
Like I would be very difficult to have a relationship with. Like very difficult. And then there'd be like this weird divorcing, even if it's like not on paper. Like like there'd be like a splitting up of the like where you go, and a lot of my time right now is just like wondering like what does it mean to be real.
Yeah.
Like that's really what I'm wondering about is like, and that's one reason like I also want to take a little bit of a break from the arts. Is like I just want to know some personal questions.
Yeah.
Like I did this thinking that it wasn't real.
Right.
What does it mean now that it is?
Yeah.
What does it mean to like have these shared stories? And I do think that I have friends, but they're not. I don't know. It's friends, but there's a little distance, and I like it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't feel like I'm like, oh man, I wish I could get closer to such and such. God, if I just go with myself, just call them. I don't know, call them. Like that just doesn't happen. I look forward to people when I see them, and I love going for walks with people, but there's an urgency. I like when I go to a movie, I like 3 seats to this side, 3 seats to that side, row in front of me, nobody behind me.
Yeah.
You can come with me, but you'll be sitting on the other side. Yeah. There's like 3.
Yeah, I think I've had lunch with you like once. 5 or 6 years.
No, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and part of that is just has to do with not feeling like I'm real.
Yeah.
That none of this is real. So like after like openings, I never go out like that, and like people would go out, and it's like,
right.
and I'm sure I would be welcome.
Yeah.
They would just have my face. I'm guessing that I'd be welcome or they would. I just would like usually after an opening, it's like, oh gosh, that was over. And then I just wanted to go back into my own head. One of my concerns, I guess, is creating like some larger projects that had like a regular audience, and we showed a fairly specific vein of work. Like it's usually political or socially relevant or those, and then like where does that audience go? Where do they go to get fed again? Like where because there is, and like that. I mean, I love Place and Surplus, but especially at Surplus, the audience really grew.
Yeah. And do you mean where do they go, like after the show, or in the rest of their life, or like after it's over?
Like after a project ends and they know where to see and have certain types of conversations, like where do they go to get that same, where they feel a part of it?
Yeah.
I like people coming to Surplus or Place and making them feel really welcome and having a conversation with them and all that.
Yeah.
And like just like, and that is I don't know, it's a really nice part about having those types of projects. Being able to be an outlet for people to create relationships and to make relationships.
Yeah.
Maybe I just like being much more of a matchmaker than But I think it gave me what I needed, actually. And that's why I feel comfortable like taking a break and leaving Portland or like not being as active, because it gave me what I needed. I really did it because I wanted my brain to be free. Like really, that was like, if I didn't go back to the future and like not have it be like this anomic feeling, this normlessness and not feeling real, then I would either want to go back or to feel real. And I got that. So I mean, I got everything that I wanted out of the arts, which had everything to do with my confidence and like knowing that I can do stuff. I mean, I was just on such a different path before that I had worked really hard on that path, and to have it just kind of like was very devastating.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have like a comfortability where I'm like, I feel like I can go back into that world if I want to, and if I wanted to go and study sociology or political theory, I could do it now. I wouldn't have been able to do that like six years ago. I just wasn't there yet. But by setting sort of a metronomic of like having gallery spaces where just every month, and like for my projects, it's usually at least twice or 4 times a month having openings, like or some event. Then it's like that just like gets you to train yourself to get your confidence back. So like that's what I wanted out of the arts. I don't really care about the career part. Yeah. I mean, it's not really as important to me. It's like, it's about the story that I want and the freedom that I want to experience. I've done zero reading
Uh-huh.
about anything in the arts. Really, I don't read anything except for local papers. Like I know nothing about like art history or even what's happening contemporarily. I don't know anything about curation as far as like the history of curation. I just don't know any of that stuff. I don't know about different studio practices. The only things that I know are the things that I've seen.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
So I think it's just really kind of funny that like being able to scratch out a bit of a career or the beginning of a career. Like having a space. Well, you learn a lot. I mean, you learn that people are really forgiving, for one, because like they're taking a big chance. Like I don't have the experience like other folks would, so they're really like learning. They were very trusting. Mm-hmm. So I think what I learned is that people are really nice. Like and they're willing to give you a lot of chances. That's probably the biggest thing that you end up learning.
Did you work with students at the beginning of it, or did that stuff come later?
That stuff came. That's really fun. That stuff came really through us opening store.
Because that was originally like the students.
Yeah. So the student space that I mean, we directed it, but we would bring in. At first, it was PNCA, then we brought in PSU, and then later on, it became the Mark Woolley space. Right. But we would do professional development where they would curate the shows. They would kind of organize their volunteers. We would help them with PR, lighting, setup, talking through concepts and doing like peer-to-peer development. Yeah. So I started working with students primarily through there. Okay. And I don't know, I like working with students. I like I like being a part of an institution. Yeah.
Well, there's something about you're on their same level if you're still figuring it out yourself and you're coming in, you don't have as much experience either. Mm-hmm. You're not like this grizzled old gallery owner like, all right, let's get this done. Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, let's figure that out. It's exciting. Concept. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah.
Maybe we can put it here. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. I like being able to like problem solve it and like do it fresh with people that are willing to problem solve with me. Mm-hmm. And also like having a space that's dedicated. I mean, this was also intentional. Like Gary Paul and I all talked about this. It's like having a space that is dedicated to professional development makes you seem like you're professional.
Right, you have something to give.
Yeah, and like you must have experience if you're offering experience. Yeah. Like to me, that is like really funny. Yeah. Because really, they gave me the experience. Yeah. For us to be able to like have, I don't know, like to make it a little bit tighter. Yeah. But you're like problem solving on the fly. Uh-huh. You're like, well, I guess it's a very weird way to get the experience, like so publicly.
It was professional development for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. One of my favorite parts about the Portland art community, or at least the part that I'm in, is the willingness to experiment. Mm-hmm. And to be able to, and it might be just sort of like being out on the West Coast. There is sort of this frontier mentality, which is different than sort of the structures that are on the East Coast. Almost kind of prospecting. There's a lot of prospecting that happens, whether it's for an art space or where you can shoot it. Like knowing that people shoot video or like show video just on the sides of buildings sometimes. And it's like, oh, like everything is possible. And I like that. My least favorite part is how white the city is. Probably that's it. Uh-huh. Because it makes it difficult for people to see their own privilege. If the white folks involved are not questioning where their privilege is coming from, and if there aren't enough brown folks and black folks and just other folks in the arts, then you're not going to ever have that critical moment where the belief can shift. Because that's really, I mean, it really just comes down to the belief. Yeah. So like if the ideas aren't being generated, then it doesn't change. So there's a staticness sometimes in Portland, especially when it comes to identity-based work. I mean, the reason that I love being in the arts, especially the type of art that I end up like showing or like that gets curated into the spaces, I like things that are socially and politically relevant. I want something that makes me culpable. I want the accusation on me. I want to see me again. I mean, like as an individual, like viewing it, I want someone to challenge me. I want someone to tell me that there's another way of seeing it. You're looking for that stuff all the time. Like you're the same. Like we attend so much stuff. And we're not attend. I'm like, yeah, you attend for your friends. You're not attending just to be supportive of friends. You're attending because you want to change how you believe. And that's like when you go to stuff. You want the challenge, and you're like willing to say like, okay, I can handle that challenge. Well, it was Michael Reinch's piece. Like honestly, like I owe the arts everything. I really do. Like, and I'm probably gonna cry. It's like so rich. But Michael Reinch's piece, the suicide piece, came like right at the right time because I knew I couldn't be from the future forever. You just can't be. You got to test it. You got to test it. So, and it's like too much to think that people aren't real around you. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You're just like, am I real? Like, is it worth the story? And then you're like, well, if I'm playing a joke on myself, then I already know stuff. I'm safe. I'm good. But you still want to test it. And so, like, Michael Range's piece really made me wonder, like, if I don't want to test it, if I don't want to put that much at risk, then I have to change how I believe. Because everything roots down to belief systems. And so, and that's the hardest thing to change. You can change your behavior, you can change, like, what you do, that next step, but you can't change your belief very easily. That takes a lot of just personal criticality. And nobody wants that, really. I mean, we all say that we want to believe like something else. We don't. It's so much nicer just to believe what you already believe. Like seriously, you can enjoy your coffee. You can enjoy your walk more. But like Michael Reinch's piece, it allowed me to really question like, why do I need that? Why is it necessary? What do I gain out of thinking that this is virtual reality that I don't get from just having this as a hallucination, having it as a hallucination? And I started to realize, like, you know what? It was a great Dumbo feather. I'm glad that I believed that it was virtual reality, but like, kind of like, no, like I don't need that feather anymore. So like, am I okay with this being real again?
What was it about Michael's that made you question your virtual reality belief?
I think it was like reading the notes, like the poetry, and knowing that it's also him, and like seeing him perform in the poetry that he creates is once you've seen him enough times, you know when it's his words and when it's somebody else's. It's like seeing him. It's like he's a friend. Like, oh, you're going through a rough spot. Like that's so like having somebody be vulnerable in front of you allows you the courage to do it yourself.
Yeah,
that's really what it. I mean, that's really what it. That's what it was.